Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for March 7th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is hour one of two. The goal always to protect life, liberty, and property in the traditions of our founding fathers, using the supreme law of the land, including the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by the founders, and standing up for God, family, and country. We reject revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. Welcome to the broadcast. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic on this freedom-loving, faith-filled, we're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time Friday. That means Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, is in the house. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all. Toward the end of a lot of people's work week, you work another day, though. You do your Saturday program, so it's not quite the end of your work week.
Yeah, sometimes I do the Saturday program. Sometimes I don't. It all depends. I do my very best to do it. Sometimes I do other things. I don't know if people know, but I do videos now, too. We've got 71 videos up now, and they're shorts on all kinds of topics. So sometimes we don't do the show live, depending on what's going on the weekends, and we do the best of during the week. Other times it's live. Other times we release a video. We're just active as all get out, Doctor.
Well, you got to stir the pot, and part of the problem is we don't have enough people stirring the pot. We'd really like to see a lot more friends in the cause of liberty and proper government. And so, we got to just see if we can't do some recruiting here and get people to participate,
Amen to that. Well, there is another participant on the line now. Lew Moore, former Congressional Chief of Staff, campaign speechwriter. He's an author. He was the campaign manager for Ron Paul. LewMoore.com. Welcome back to Liberty Roundtable Live, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There's so much to talk about, so little time. I want to start with Dr. Bradley's weekly webinars every Thursday evening. If you go to freedomsrisingsun.com, you can sign up and get a link to access the webinars, Q&As on the Constitution, and a lot more. What was the big topics last night, Doctor?
Well, before, there was, we had quite a number of topics. I left a lot on the table. I couldn't get to it all. But
isn't that always the case, though, Doctor?
Yeah, well,
has it ever been where you're like, man, I finished up early. I'm just done.
No. I always go late. But before I started, I did a little personal privilege thing, and it was just, and I'll just mention it, maybe of interest to you. I'm a kind of a skeptic on unproven vaccines.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yesterday was the 55th anniversary of the origin of my skepticism. On March 6th, 1970, as I in process to a new base, it's a long story, but I didn't take that much time anyway on my webinar, but I told the people how those of us that were incoming were informed as we did our incoming briefing that before we left the room, we were going to be injected with a vaccine, quote unquote, that was, we were the first human subjects to receive it. They had been animal tested, but had not been tested on humans.
Special.
We were the closest thing to human flesh they could find without actually violating human flesh. And the outcome of that was not good. I mean, I was able to function, but it took 6 months of kind of a crappy situation to be able to kind of feel like, okay, I'm getting my feet back on the ground. I continued to do all the things I was called on to do, but this kind of unproven technology, if you will, I've been down that road. And today, even this very moment, I suffer from what I believe is kind of a residual from all of that stuff. And so when they come up with and say safe and effective, a 15-minute cure kind of thing, they threw it together in their Bunsen burner in the back room. It just didn't strike me as being good. And for the last 5 years, Sam, we have had almost endless conversations about this kind of stuff. Probably the first time you've ever heard that it was 55 years ago yesterday that I went through the program. And it was the military. We had it reminds me, and I mentioned this last night on the show. When I was in basic training, we had a sergeant that was from Puerto Rico, and so he's Hispanic. And on his locker, inside the locker door, he had a little greeting card stuck up with tape, and there was a little, Hispanic fellow with a sombrero on, and he had a little donkey there that he had a cord around his neck, and he was leading it around. And the front of it said, "My heart is yours." And then you open it up, and it said, "But my donkey is the government's." And you can do your translation. But the fact of the matter is that was kind of the mode I felt like, our donkey was the government, and they were going to do whatever with us they chose to do. So the government did that not only to, their enlistees from 55 years ago. Well, it was 50 years before when we were doing this initially during the COVID con, but they did it to the whole world, and the whole world has suffered the repercussions of that with millions of deaths, countless millions of
oh, there's no question.
Ongoing
and
problems.
Where I really received my vaccine skepticism is early on in 1986 when Reagan and clowns and company in Congress literally put together this idea that said, hey, you know what? The vaccine companies are going to fail. And the only way to prevent them from failing is to basically create the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund. So basically Congress put, and Reagan signed or whatever this plan to where, hey, if vaccines make people sick, kill people, maim people, do all these different harmful things to people, then the vaccine companies couldn't be sued or couldn't, be responsible for that. The government would basically pull it into a specialty kind of vaccine court, hush it all up, bottle it all up, but yet, you know what, if you were qualified, you get a little bit of compensation for the abuse that you took. And I realized that if you're going to create this big compensation fund to put taxpayers on the hook and get vaccine companies off the hook, they can't be very safe and effective, or you wouldn't need that. See, if they're safe and effective with a little glitch here or there, then these vaccine companies could, take care of it themselves. If they got sued, all they got to do is lay out the science before the court and explain and da-da-da-da-da. And if somebody was harmed a little bit here or there, because we all agree they're not perfect, but hey, then it would be fine. But if we need to what other industry have we completely taken away the liability for something? 100%. He said, taxpayers got your back on this no matter what you do. Okay, I knew then it was a big old scam. Then when I had kids, I decided, hey, I don't want to vaccinate my children. Because I'm concerned about this, and the reasons are obvious that I explained why. So then I started to dig and read all kind of books and get involved with Barbara Lowe Fisher at 909shot.com is what their website they promoted then. Now I think it's NVIC now, National Vaccine Injury Compensation. Anyway, all I'm telling you is, so these guys, I studied doctors and professionals and experts who have written books on this stuff. And I just got this understanding that, look, these things aren't safe and effective. And the proof is as simple as that. Why transfer the liability to taxpayers when I can't think of another industry where that's really the case? And so I lost my faith in vaccinations way back then. What about you, Lew?
Well, I'm struggling to think of a special interest that wouldn't like to have a fund paid for by the taxpayers to get them out of the problems that they get in. So I think that's a goal of every special interest group in Washington, D.C. But certainly, I mean, there were even questions back in the 50s about the Salk vaccine, and there were a lot of people that were injured initially when it came out on the market. You hear about the wonders of the Salk vaccine and how fantastic it was, and certainly polio.
That was a live polio virus one, right?
Yeah. And certainly polio was no bowl of cherries, but there's been issues with vaccines. There's been a whole lot of politics with vaccines. And, we need to get to a point, allegedly we're getting to that point now where we'll have some real transparency.
Well, I hope we do. I just don't know how much confidence I have in that, Lew, and I'll tell you why. There's a headline that says this: Secrecy and Turmoil dominate RFK Jr.'s first weeks as health secretary. Dr. Bradley, do you want to respond to that first? I was hoping would have some real action here, but I don't know.
I don't want to take the 15 minutes I took last night on the webinar. That was the first question that came in, only not in those exact words. And you are being buffaloed if you're following what the lame brain, mainstream, traditional media sources are saying on this thing. They are trying to divide and conquer. And if you do a little bit of deep dive on what's going on and so on and so forth, what they're using as the justification for this position is a kind of an op-ed that Bobby Kennedy did, and they say, "Oh no, he sold us out. He's abandoned his Make America Healthy Again thing and everything like that." People need to understand a few things. Number one, he had one of the most acrimonious confirmations that any appointee for a president has ever had. Got through by the skin of his teeth, and they have virtually nobody that has been confirmed under his organization at this point. So right now he'd be a Lone Ranger with like 90,000 employees, and every single one of them is not every single one, but the vast majority of them are completely dedicated to the traditional, this 1986 thing you talked about. It goes back even earlier than that, the 76 thing when Gerald Ford did it, and they had more damage, but they only had two handfuls of hurt people before they pulled that pokey, and they actually had more deaths because of the vaccine than they had because of the flu that they claim initiated it. But at any rate, the fact of the matter is, I believe that Bobby Kennedy is still trying to get people confirmed so that they will have like-minded people in the organization. They'll be able to do a difference. If you cut him off and left him one man, I mean, he's Uriah in the heat of the battle. And so if you read what he said carefully, choice, accountability, information, and the idea that, oh yeah, anybody that wants to have the measles vaccine ought to be able to get it, anybody that wants it. But this idea of making a compulsory mandate and all this kind of Bravo Sierra is completely out of that thing that he's talking about. By the way, another thing that we need to understand is that the measles vaccine does not come in a bottle by itself. You got to get the MMR. And if you stop and think about that, the mumps part of that thing has a side effect of Guillain-Barré. You mentioned polio back there just a minute or so ago, before I got rattling off. And in my opinion, what they've done is they've renamed polio. It's Guillain-Barré. If you look at the symptoms that come with Guillain-Barré, it's almost an identical play out to polio. So polio is still with us, particularly if you take some of these potentially side-affected things that you inject your children with, and literally the paralysis and all of that stuff comes along with it.
It doesn't end. So what do you think RFK has done, number one, in the couple of weeks he's been there? I know Doge is firing a lot of employees across the bow there. What has he done, and what do you think is going to be his biggest accomplishments? I think what we need to do is abolish the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund that got put in place in '86. Stop the shilling for these clowns.
Yeah, we need to pray for it.
Sam, I think I'm sorry, Scott. Pardon me, but I think the first thing is we need to look at the Constitution for just a moment. None of these public health agencies are. I don't see them enumerated in the Constitution, and all there's been has been chicanery from them. So I'll make that comment just initially. Secondly, Sam, I don't know what direction RFK is going to go, but it is a fact that it leaked out that he told his staff that he is going to investigate the entire childhood vaccine schedule, which now has 75 vaccines on it now. I mean,
some
just
crazy
ridiculous.
Number, yeah, psychotic.
And so I having dealt a little bit, not with him directly, but with the Children's Health Initiative folks that he's been involved with. I think he's sincere. He is dealing with, one time Dr. Paul told me that we talk about the military-industrial complex and we talk about the intelligence community. The medical-industrial complex may be the most evil and most powerful of all the interest groups that are running around Capitol Hill stealing our money.
By the way, Lew, let me just ask you a quick question. Were you with Dr. Paul in the 90s in Congress?
I was, but I didn't work for him. I worked for another congressman who you might have known, Scott, by the name of Jack Metcalf from Washington State. I was his chief of staff, and we worked in the first Freedom Caucus. We called it the Liberty Caucus. It was actually predated the Freedom Caucus. Ron started it, and Jack was the first member to join it. So I worked with him quite a bit there.
The reason I asked, and it's just an aside note, again, another personal privilege if you'd answered it the way I thought you might. I had a daughter that was in Washington, D.C., lobbying against the Hillary Clinton effort to get, the universal health care kind of thing going, and also doing a pro-life effort. And Dr. Paul used to call her sometimes and say, I need to talk to somebody that's sane. Come over to my office and let's visit. Because the insanity that's on, Capitol Hill is just amazing. And so he often invited her over, and they'd have one-on-one discussions about where the country was going. And I just thought if you were there, you may have met one of my daughters. So
let me lay down and answer this question, folks, about this thing. Secrecy and turmoil dominate RFK's first week as health secretary. I put a question mark behind the headline because I don't believe what we're being told is true. Let me explain what I mean. Every single organization that I see that wants to tell you how, Bobby had a horrible conflicting hearings, he squeaked in and now it's just secrecy and this and that and the other, and then the other headlines from the mainstream press are dominating. Hey, measles and all these other things dominate the headlines, and poor RFK is losing staff based on Doge. And this is exactly what Dr. Bradley highlighted a minute ago. Hey, they're just peddling propaganda. Okay, and Dr. Bradley's right on that. But the reason that I focus on this is for a bigger issue than that. You can expect the mainstream press clowns to lie, to manipulate, to get it wrong, to pitch Doge against RFK, to pitch Trump against Musk, to pitch us against everybody. That's their standard operating practice, right? But here's what I find interesting. I can't find a single article or story from any conservative news organizations that lay out what's really going on. Okay, same thing with Doge. I hear all kinds of stuff. Hey, Doge has saved $500 billion. Doge has saved 100 and something. Doge done this, done that, done. And then they say, hey, but it's all conflicting. It's all fake. It's all this. It's all that. Same with Congress. I look at Congress and I go, what have they done for the last, they've been there for more than 8 weeks now. What have they done? Oh, the Senate's confirmed a couple of people. They passed the Lincoln Riley Act. Good. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I don't have a real news organization telling me the real story at all. And so to me, the biggest problem, and the reason that I bring this up, hey, the propagandists are going to lie. That's what they've always done. They've peddled fake news and called them. If you challenge them, somehow you're a nut, an enemy to the Republic, a terrorist, a conspiracy theorist, or whatever. But I don't see anybody telling what's really going on with RFK. So I'm telling you right now, the Trump administration has a problem. Now, I know they've got Caroline Leavitt there, and she's doing a great job. And I know that Trump takes on the mainstream press and has called them clowns and thugs for a long time. I've been doing it way before Trump ever thought about it, but that's another topic. I'm bringing this up, though, because no one's telling our side of the story. I try to get a hold of RFK before and after the election, before and after his confirmation by the Senate. I try to get a hold of these different people to get updates and real stories and real news. And hey, man, there's a dearth. Doctor, your thoughts first, then we'll go to Lew.
Yeah, I'd love to hear Lew more than me talking, but let me just mention that I think what you're saying is true. And here's the deal: you discount and basically deflect before the program can start and roll forward, and that's their strategy. I mean, And honestly, you have so-called conservative. I hate the way those terminologies have been captured, liberals and conservatives and left and right and all that kind of stuff. We got to go with principles and right and wrong and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the lame brain, mainstream, traditional kinds of media are all on board, just like they were with the COVID con, telling the story that that basically has an outcome ultimately that will divide and conquer and cause the people to lose hope, people that were hoping for making America healthy again, or a reduction in the size of the corruption and the, all the waste and everything else like that, restoring, as Lew brings out, the constitutional perspective. Well, if you can make it sound like it's a train off the edge of the cliff already, well, your job's pretty well done. You don't have to burn a lot of energy trying to figure out how to defeat it, because
but
everybody's mind is
nobody telling this. So I type into Google and all these search engines. I say, hey, is RFK Jr. doing a good job? I get back the following headlines. Inside his healthcare takeover. Well, it's going to be negative already, right? What changes does he wants to make to the health system? Yeah, they're not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Big old negative story. Next one, Doge and Trump may pose the biggest hurdle for RFK Jr. Next one, just goes on, right? And I go, wow, what positive has RFK brought to the table? No one's there to tell the story. Well, I'd love to tell the story, but hey, those guys are too busy being on CNN and all the clowns that hate them to come talk to me. And so we've got a serious problem. I just said, is RFK doing a good job? Next headline, what will RFK Jr. do as Trump's secretary? Then it goes up, it shouldn't be up to moms and dads and everybody else to do the FDA's job there. 7 things about RFK you should know. -7. Look at RFK's record as Trump selects him to be the nation's leader. Okay, and it goes on and on. Negative. RFK Jr. reviewing resumes for the top jobs because they fired a bunch of people with Doge. And have the next headline, RFK has people panicking. The next one, hey, what his position under the Trump cabinet will look like. And negative. There's not a positive or a factual story in the mix that I find anywhere, Lew.
Well, you are looking on Google, Sam, but I won't say anything more about that.
Hold on. I said I went to several different search engines.
No, I'm kidding you. But well, one thing I have to say is you look at the opposition. That I use the most, by the way, is what's that thing called? What's that search engine called everybody loves? I use Brave. I don't quite a bit, but
no, Brave is a browser. It's DuckDuckGo is a search engine. Anyway, I use DuckDuckGo and Google and several others, and now I'll try ChatGPT while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't be getting into a tech conversation with you, Sam, in particular. But anyhow, the enemy is talking a lot about MAGA media, and they're freaking out about how well we've gotten our narratives out in certain areas. And I think that's true. I mean, our media world is just coalescing. The Liberty News radios of the world are just starting out. There's hundreds of them. And so I'm actually pretty optimistic longer term about what might be called Trump media or patriotic media, but we definitely have some issues right now. We definitely do have some issues.
Yeah. So,
did you find Jane Orient's article about it? I'll talk about that if you want me to afterward. Jane was a really positive article about hopefulness.
Well, we can do that. Again, like I say, I'm just telling you, I look in the main news cycle, and there's nothing. And I'm not bringing this up to be negative about RFK Jr. I'm actually defending him. And I'm not being negative about Trump or Doge. I'm defending them. What I'm saying to you, though, is there is a break in the supply chain for honest, fact-based news. And until that's fixed, folks, we're in serious trouble. Lew Moore, Dr. Scott Bradley, and yours truly continue in seconds on your radio.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. President Trump reaches out to Iran, looking to negotiate a nuclear deal. Mr. Trump tells Fox Business he has sent a letter to Iran's supreme leader. American employers grew their payrolls by 151,000 jobs last month. Labor Department says the unemployment rate rose a tenth of a point to 4.1%. Following a Wall Street sell-off, President Trump is temporarily backtracking on the imposition of steep tariffs on Canada and Mexico, although the president insists the move has nothing to do with the stock market performance.
In a reversal, the president is delaying the 25% tariffs on many Canadian and Mexican imports. This is the second one-month postponement since he first unveiled the import taxes early last month. The threatened tariffs have jeopardized relations with America's two neighbors, and the plans have caused the stock market to sink. The president says he still plans to impose reciprocal tariffs starting in early April. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Presidential envoy Keith Kellogg says Ukrainian President Zelensky has only himself to blame for President Trump pausing military aid to and intelligence sharing with Ukraine.
You don't try to challenge the President of the United States in the Oval Office that, in fact, you need to side with me and not the Russians. You don't become an independent interlocutor if you look at something like that. And he was forewarned. It's not like President Zelensky was not made aware that this is what we wanted out of the Ukrainians, to basically say, go here, it sets the next stage, it opens up, it goes forward.
Saudi Arabia will host talks next week between high-level American and Ukrainian officials. Those discussions focus on ending the war with Russia as well as the U.S. minerals deal with Ukraine. Wall Street, the Dow is up 63 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-504-8790. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center, may not be available in all states.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. I don't mean to beat this to death, but I'm telling you, it's an important issue that no one's talking about but me. And no one even really, as far as I can tell, sees the importance of the point I'm making. It seems interesting to me. Dr. Scott Bradley with me, freedomsrisingsun.com. Lew Moore with me, Hour of Decision, lewmoore.com. Secrecy and Turmoil dominate RFK's first weeks as health secretary, says the mainstream press. I 100% disagree. All right? It was very difficult to get him confirmed. And Doge is laying a bunch of people off. I think he's trying to personally get set behind the scenes. I give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm defending RFK Jr. right now. But the mainstream press is doing everything that they can to destroy his credibility. When they're literally saying, hey, the measles outbreak has swamped RFK. Everything's a secret. Trump and Musk are against RFK, and RFK is against them, and this and that. And everything you see is negative. I cannot find, for the life of me, a single, fair, honest article. What has RFK been doing for the last 3 weeks? What are the plans that he's got, that he's working on? And I'm not even talking about, hey, hardcore, going after everything and everybody. There's a lot of simple topics that could be taken on that could really, in my opinion, if we're careful about it and wise about it, that could really bring people aboard and could really be fair to RFK Jr. But I don't see a single one. And I'm telling you right now, we're not going to win this battle if there's 100% dearth of information on our side. We're just not. Dr. Bradley, finish your thoughts on that, and then we'll let Lew continue here.
Well, absolutely, and you're right. There is a controlled media on this whole narrative, and it's something that's purposefully done because of this power of the pharma lobby and the AMA and everything else like that. I mentioned Jane Orient before the break, and she's led the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. I've spoken to their annual convention and been involved in their meetings, and I see there's a lot of physicians.
Truth teller.
And I think that organization is not kowtowing to the lame brain, the way that the medical practices are going with the AMA. But Jane put out an article, and admittedly it's hard to find, and I don't know how I came across it when I was reviewing some of the things, but I've, interviewed her a number of times, spoken at the same different meetings and everything. She is, as you point out, a truth teller. In fact, she's a firecracker on that stuff.
No question. She
and
does
in
awesome.
her article,
she's credible with credentials, big time, too.
Oh, absolutely. And we need more like her. We need an army like her. But actually, it was a very positive article about the Kennedy situation. The idea that he's promoting actually choice and accountability, that every parent should read the contradictions that come in the box with their kid's vaccine. And they'll say, the heck you say? Are you kidding me? My kid's going to get Guillain-Barré potentially, which is just a replacement term for polio from my youth. And these kinds of things, these autoimmune diseases, this deafness, these issues that come, death of pancreases, and the kid ends up a diabetic. I mean, whatever. And when I was a kid, everybody got measles, and it was just a part of growing up. And you say, oh yeah, but they all died. No, they didn't. There was about 400 deaths of all of the hundreds of thousands that got it every year. But largely, and Kennedy brought this out, and if you guys haven't read, and anybody out there, you can find Kennedy's op-ed that he put out several days ago that they're trying to eviscerate him on. And he said that measles was largely 95% had been eradicated before the vaccine in 1960.
And that's absolutely factual.
Now, it came because of nutrition. It came because of sanitation. And he talks about vitamin A. Jane Orient talked about vitamin C and the things. So natural solutions. Nobody ever, to this point, you look at us, the Health and Human Services guy, that has ever given any talk about natural healing. Kennedy's kind of foreshadowing this. I think that this is purposely being done by everybody from Fox News to CNN. This stuff is being, the mud throwing out on this thing, if people will take the time to go read what he actually wrote.
Oh, you're spot on. You're spot on. But all I'm telling you is until Trump, Kennedy, other people get a handle on this, they don't understand this, and so I'm providing them the warning. I'm also providing them the help if they want it. You have got to start releasing daily briefs or weekly briefs, depending on the issues, and you've got to tell your side of what's happening. You've got to lay this out. Now, I get that RFK Jr. needs to be a little bit patient right now and not blow everything up and everything. You know, I get the wisdom in politics, and I get all that, okay? But at the same time, there's a ton of good things that you could talk about. Fluoride in the water is a great example. You know, fluoride used to be, if you brought that up, you were a crazy nut. Now you've literally got states all over the country starting to ban fluoride. So you could start there, for instance, and instead of, hey, saying fluoride's this and that, you don't need to get into all the details. All you got to say is, you know what, this is great that people are having choice, that people are getting agency, that we're starting to realize that there's just more sides to a story than just one narrative the mainstream press has put out. You could do so much good with so little resources if you just leveraged it to the new media. So let me give you an example of a headline that makes the point. With 80,000 employees and a $1.8 trillion budget, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is a federal behemoth. They say focused on improving the health for all Americans. Okay, this guy's got one of the most critical roles in the Trump administration you could get. And he doesn't have to start out, blowing the, deal up. He can start out with positive things that we can agree on. And, hey, fluoride choice agencies, great. There's so many other simple things that he could tout and promote that would simply just, Americans would hear the high-pitched meltdown from the mainstream press, lies and manipulations, and then the new media could grab a daily, a weekly brief and update people on, hey, here's what RFK is really doing. Here's the effects of what RFK has accomplished already just by being there. This fluoride discussion did not come out of nowhere, folks. And you know what? We're starting to expose the truth on that thing in a very meaningful way. And it comes down to, hey, don't force people by putting it in the water. There's all kinds of danger to that, the other side of the story. So let's tell the other side of the story, but let's back off and give people choice. If you want to buy fluoride tablets or whatever and destroy your own health, go ahead. But the rest of so I'm just telling you, and this whole purpose is to defend RFK from all the lies that I see, and then to tell people here's what needs to be done. You need an avenue to tell the other side of the story. And willing people like me at my own expense aren't really able to tell that story very well because I can't even get the information to tell it. Lou?
That's why you have me, Sam. Go ahead, Lou. I'm sorry.
No, please. But this is the thing, Sam. I hear you talking, and I have to. I get almost PTSD from when I was in Washington, D.C. and working in the Congress in the 90s because our team never told their story properly, effectively, systematically, and the avalanche of resources put on the other team that creates, they thought at one time created all the narratives that were about in America. They never sleep. And they're not sleeping right now. Let me tell you, particularly the pharmaceutical lobby and the AMA types, et cetera. And so you have your finger on a big problem, period, but it's more acute. I have to agree with you, as we're talking this morning, that, RFK Jr. is getting the short straw here, at least at this point. But I will say the alternative media, which is now larger in audience than the legacy media, there are plenty of people coming on there talking about the fact that hydroxychloroquine just got approved by the FDA, the fact that they are telling lies about RFK, people that are reciting now the very recent history of the whole COVID scam, which is wholly embarrassing and scandalous to our opponents to even discuss it. So there are people doing this, but a lot more needs to happen. And I think people that are now in office on our team have got to give. Yeah, they're starting to do it, but they need to give more recognition to the new media, to the Liberty News radios of the world.
Media. I'm also trying to give recognition to RFK Jr. doing a better job than people think. So while they say, "Hey, Musk and Doge seems to be the biggest enemy of RFK Jr. right now," see, that's how they divide and conquer. Dr. Bradley's spot on that reality check. Here's the way I would write these headlines, okay? Listen carefully. With 80,000 employees and a $1.8 trillion budget, and then they go on and talk about RFK's agency. So I think the first headline RFK needs to come back up and say, hey, we're working with Doge to reduce that 80,000 employees, and we're getting rid of those who don't believe in agency and choice, who don't believe in transparency, who don't believe in accountability. Those people are going to be gone. I don't know what it's going to look like. Maybe 40,000 employees when we're done. Maybe 20. I mean, I'd like to abolish HHS completely in the first place. But, hey, you can highlight the employees. You can also say, hey, Doge is working on it. We're spending $1.8 trillion. That's our budget. We're going to chop that down to $900 billion, less than $1 trillion. And so now we got rid of 40,000 employees, and we saved $1 trillion, and we're working with Doge effectively. See, and this blows up the narrative of the mainstream press when you do that, when you release that from your department, if you've got factual details to where it's like, all right, now let's force a discussion about this. Hey, American people, you start calling all these liberal whacked out talk shows and challenge them on every one of these points. Sam Bushman and everybody else in the new media, you start to tell the tale of truth. And I'm just telling you right now, we're not dealing with this effectively at all. Now, I'm grateful that Dr. Bradley found Dr. Jane Orient's article. Still can't find the title of it. Still can't find the article. Can't read it for myself no matter how hard I try. Have to get it from Dr. Bradley somehow if he can find it. This is my point. We have got to work together, and we have got to basically have, in my opinion, a supply chain of truth. And until we get that, folks, we're going to get smoked every time, and the deep state's going to swamp us. Am I too crazy, Lou?
You can never be too crazy, Sam. You can never be too crazy. No, no, I don't. I don't think that we're swamping the deep state, but we're new at it, and the team has never worked together before. And
hey, man, I've been at it for 30 years, and if they listen to me and get it together, we can do this thing, buddy. We can throw down like nobody's business.
I agree with you. I agree. I mean, I agree with that 100%. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of time. But
I'm not.
But you're right. But you're right about what needs to happen. And when I say a little bit of time, I don't mean it's the congressionals now, and they didn't do anything yet. But they will. They will in the last 2 years. I mean, the kind of procrastination that particularly just normal Republicans put up with. No, I don't see that at all.
Let me tell you why I'm not willing to give them time, because they've been beating up on RFK Jr. for 3 weeks now, and we hear no other side of the story. Okay, they've basically had over 2 months in Congress now, and I don't even know what those clowns have accomplished, except for the Lincoln-Riley Act. Good for them. Approving a couple of appointees. Please. But other than that, what has Congress even done? They're literally 2 weeks away now from either shutting down the government or passing a big kick the can down the road spending bill again. And you've got the leader of the House, Mike Johnson, going, yeah, let's pass the big spending bill and let's talk about Doge savings later. Okay, we've already lost with that kind of statement from the Speaker of the House. This is what I mean.
I agree with that.
Now, Steve Stockman, former congressman, said, look, you've got a year to absolutely double down and get accomplishments done, because the next year you're going to be running on what you've either done or haven't done, and you're going to lose or win based on that reality. So you've got a year. Well, 2 months of that year, 1/6 of it is already gone. And we're about to face a debt ceiling. And if we lose that battle or kick the can down the road, then we're going to be having to battle the budget again in, October or whatever, around Christmas time. And by golly, we don't dare. They'll lose. I get that we need a little bit of time, folks. And I get that you don't want to blow up the narrative too early. And I get all that. At the same time, you go look at the news cycle. And I'm telling you right now, it is dismal. We've accomplished virtually nothing. So now we're going to go to Trump's speech on Tuesday. Okay? He gave a great speech. Okay? 76% of viewers approved of Trump's congressional address. Are you one of them, Lou?
Absolutely, I'm one of them.
Okay?
Yes.
So am I.
Totally
Are you one of them, Dr. Bradley? Do you think his address was good? Did you watch it?
Well, largely I am, yes. I think it was a continuation of his inaugural address, and rightly so. I mean, he's got to keep picking away at it. I found it interesting, and this is a side trip we don't need to even take, but the gal that did the rebuttal for the Democrats, Michigan Senator Lisa Slotkin, I found that a fascinating news story too that came up in the webinar I did last night. But honestly, Trump gave the message. It was a little long. It was a continuation of the hammering on the previous regime. But I think by and large the people they were hearing what they wanted to hear, and so I think it was a winner, honestly, in spite of what the
and it wasn't. I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't a couple blips there, but it wasn't full of socialism and we're going to spend this into oblivion and everything else. There was a couple of things that I'm not too excited about, but for the most part, it was an incredible speech, and Americans agreed with it and everything else. But here's the problem: right now, it's all a speech, it's all rhetoric, and where the battles are happening is in the news realm. We're losing big, and in the realm about you got judges all against Donald. And Congress sits idly by, and I don't even know what they're doing, but they're sitting idly by. They're not codifying Trump's initiatives or leadership or anything else. They're just twiddling their thumbs and idly sitting there going, "We got you, Donald. We got you, Donald. We're good." So they literally spend their time. We've got a debt ceiling about to melt down in less than 2 weeks now. Let's see, what's the date today? The 7th, and it's the 14th. We got a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a week, and they're basically busy going, "We're going to censure Al Green." Yeah, we censored Al Green, and 10 Democrats went along with us. It was phenomenal. We had to shut that clown down. He was a bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not backing Green. I'm just saying, who gives a rip that guy got a T and got kicked out? Who cares? You're going to really spend congressional time on that when you got a week to deal with the budget, and you're going to literally spend your time on Al Green?
So, Sam, every real
absolutely
negative...
delusional and what's the word I'm looking for? You've been deluded to the point where you can't get anything done at that point.
Sam, every real negative, in my opinion, that you've just identified is focused on the Congress, and we have a real Congress problem. Just look at where we're at fiscally, and you
the
see
reason
that.
I'm doing this isn't to down Trump. It's to say that we better get behind him, and we're not. And we as the people better show our displeasure, and fast.
Sure.
You know, Sam, we've talked a little bit about this in years past, but I go back, sometimes if you're old enough, you think, wow, what happened and how did this happen together? Well, back in 1968, and what you're doing is recommending that Trump do this, and we'll use the new media to do it.
And I'm recommending all the different people that lead departments too, RFK Jr. and Kash Patel, and I can go on and on. I'm not downing any of these people. I think they're tremendous. We've got a great thing going. But, man, you got to tell the story, people. I'm telling you right now. That's
what I'm telling you. How did the 1968 Gun Control Act get passed? Well, LBJ got on the phone with 6 of his in-the-pocket guys, Tom Laughlin, Gregory Peck, Hugh O'Brien, James Stewart, Kirk Douglas, and Charlton Heston, manly men on the silver screen that knew how to do their shooting irons. And they went on a campaign across the country on the radio talk shows and on the TV. There were everybody in '68 was not
talking
on TV,
heads, news everywhere.
Talking heads and news, and they said, I'm a real man. They didn't have to say it; everybody knew that. I know how to use guns, and boy, am I sure glad we've got this Second Amendment. We've got to have some common sense gun control laws, and with those 6 guys telling everybody to call their senator and congressman, they've got to pass this 1968 Gun Control Act. They did. So now we've got, as you're pointing out, a new media that they could go to constantly, and they could get people calling their senators and congressmen. In 1968, the phones went off the hook in Washington, D.C. They stupidly passed that 1968 Gun Control Act with the help of 6 movie stars that couldn't tell which end of the gun to hold. These guys, and Charlton Heston later on became the head of the NRA for a period of time, and he was one of the guys that pulled that off for LBJ.
Oh, yeah.
Trump could do the same thing with an agendized approach with the right contacts within the the new media.
Yeah, and he would
I
elevate
think that
those
the
people
message-
big time. So let me give you a quick example to make the point that I'm making. I don't know how much you guys know about this. You probably know a little bit because it did squeak through a little bit. CNN forced to issue correction on its own, quote, fact check after trying to nail Trump for talking about transgender mice. Western Journal with this piece. They're part of the new media. They're doing a great job. So they had the facts, but CNN said they didn't have the facts. But the White House brought the receipts, and CNN was forced to admit that Trump was right and they were wrong. But instead of admitting they're wrong, they just wrote, well, this needs context. Well, where is everybody in the new media to absolutely beat CNN over the head with this thing? And I don't mean physically or anything like that. I'm not talking violence, folks. Don't misunderstand me. But everywhere there should be no discussions at all except for, hey, you know what? You guys lied about Trump and got caught. Everybody needs to leave CNN. CNN's a clown show. They've got a politically driven agenda that's hostile to the Republic, hostile to the truth, peddling fake news. They need to be discredited, kicked out of the White House press corps, and we need to absolutely move on and discredit these clowns for their disgraceful, okay? They didn't fact check. They lied. They had an agenda. They thought they could beat Trump on the details. They lost big because Trump brought the receipts, and then they're like, well, this needs context. We have to, and so then they go into this big old minutia lie manipulation of, you know, what exactly is transgender mice promotion and this and that. And now you parse his words and back into science, and well, it's quite slightly different, and now you're just off on a debate. Look, CNN lost big. Well, the nation needs to make those clowns pay for that, and I don't mean in a hostile, violent way. I just mean, look, they need to be turned off. They're a clown news service that's been discredited so many times it's not even funny, and this takes the cake. Okay, where are the people that quadruple down on that point and have that be the narrative? This Sunday, every single talk show should be, hey, these clowns need to be shut down. They're out of control peddling fake news. Even when they get caught peddling fake news, they try to weasel out of it. No, shame on them. They've been discredited. That's what they're doing to Bobby Kennedy. And we need to turn that narrative and do that to CNN and defend Bobby. But you got to have information to defend Bobby. Without it, it's really hard. Lowell? Or Lou, I mean, sorry, Lou. I don't have Lowell. We need Lowell here, too. Then when I say
we need Lowell here.
Yeah, there you go. All right, go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, well, they need to get a press operation of some efficiency set up at HHS. That's the first thing. Secondly, people are responding to a lot of these things, Sam, on X and places like that, but it does not have the organizational heft that you have from the left who have been doing this for 100 years. So I guess I would say give it a little bit of time. There's a lot more people in the game now on our side of the fence, but no, there's a lot more needs to be done. And you've identified a major area where more needs to be done. Absolutely.
And where everybody pleads we need more time to give them time. Pretty soon will be the next election cycle and we won't have anything to run on because we failed and gave too much time. And now we're out of luck. Day late, dollar short, and now what do we do, right? If we're not very careful, that's the Rubicon we cross. And every decision made either puts a nail in that coffin or protects us and defends us and sets the narrative straight. And so, hey, what's going to happen in a week when they pass the debt disaster? Hey, if Doge is saving so much money, we don't need to increase the debt ceiling, doctor.
Well, there's no time like the present, as you're pointing out. We have literally... I think a disaster of a continuing resolution that'll loom ahead of us again. Sounds like we're about out of time this hour, but I think that there is got to be a better set of storytellers there, and some people are doing a pretty good job, and others are not. We got to increase the number that are.
All right, hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sam Bushman. I've got Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out his weekly webinars, Q&As on the Constitution, and more. Also, check out his incredible collegiate series, To Preserve the Nation, all available at freedomsrisingsun.com. We've also got Lew Moore with us, ladies and gentlemen. And Lew is a former Congressional Chief of Staff, speechwriter, national campaign manager for Ron Paul. He does a program called Hour of Decision, available at libertynewsradio.com. Check out his website, lewmore.com. Hang tight. Hour 1 of the can, 2 coming up, and God save the Republic.